The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Wendy Bohan. I'm a science communication specialist and I'm on the 500 Women Scientists Leadership Board. I want to talk to you today about using social media for your pod, why you should do it, and then we'll cover some ways to deal with contentious communication on the internet. So, one of the main things that we want to do as 500 Women Scientists is make sure that we're building support, connection, and community with our online presence. There's a lot of literature that talks about how we can use social media in positive ways to do things like provide connection, community, mentoring, sponsorship, and advocacy. We can increase structural diversity and representation, promote and bring awareness to intersectionality, reduce feelings of isolation for minority scientists, promote an increased sense of belonging and cultural wealth. And of course, social media is a low cost, low barrier engagement tool. So these are all things that are very aligned with our mission and values at 500 Women Scientists. So we really want to utilize the tool of social media as best we can. I really love this quote from Montgomery 2018. She says that people are using digital spaces to intentionally cultivate communities to support the success of individuals underrepresented in particular spaces and in the academy as a whole. So I think that's a really good guiding principle for us to think about as we're setting up and maintaining our social media for our pods. Social media also allows us to change the perception of science and scientists. So, as scientists, we all know what it's like to do science, right? But a lot of people don't have that insight. They don't even know a real living scientist. Social media gives them a chance to have a window into that world. People have stereotypes about what it means to do science and what it's like to do science, and we're able to show them sort of the whole picture that science is field work and lab work and conferences and collaborations. There's all of these different things that are involved. It also lets us show people the process of science, the excitement and discovery parts of science. You know, it's not just hypothesis, experiment, conclusion. There's ideas and challenges. You have discoveries, you have arguments and collaborations, and it's really a very dynamic, nonlinear process. This allows us to have that transfer of enthusiasm directly to other people. We can show them why we love our science. And of course, it allows us to show the great breadth of diversity that we have in science. Of course, we need to increase that, absolutely. But we also need to highlight all of the different kinds of people that are doing science. It's not just pale, male, and stale, right? Here we see Miriam. She's not being pale, male, and stale. She's in her kangaroo suit with a pipette. You know, she's giving herself a facial. She's showing the full breadth of herself as a human being. And that's important. Social media allows you to bring your whole self to the table and show people that, you know, scientists are just people. We have the same cares and concerns that they do. Social media, of course, allows a platform for marginalized voices. And as 500 Women Scientists, we always want to make sure that we are giving amplification to people that are doing excellent scholarship, and particularly to underrepresented groups that may not have a voice and a platform in other places. It allows us to push different initiatives. As 500 Women Scientists, we've done a lot of things like Fund USA Science, support EPA, Meet a Scientist, trying to change the idea of what a scientist looks like, and also trying to support organizations and causes that are important to our mission. There's other organizations out there like ESWN that are doing great things, and so we can also support other platforms and our partner organizations. Social media also allows us to change perceptions. Messing and Westwood showed that passive exposure to new information can change public perceptions and behavior. So, this is an interesting slide from Dr. Karen Kirk's talk at AGU in 2017. And this is from a thread on Reddit. And I know Reddit is a scary place, but the thread was about people that didn't used to believe in climate change that do now. They wanted to know what changed their mind. So, one poster said that repeated exposure to the overwhelming evidence of climate change, partially thanks to persistent posters on Facebook, finally got through to me. So, facts really do change people's minds, but not always, not immediately, not if they're from an untrusted source, and not if they're delivered with insults. So, that brings us to contentious communication, right? There's a lot of things that are contentious online and in other places: climate change, evolution, gender, diversity, inclusion, even things just like science in general can be problematic right now. And the way that scientists have usually approached this is by saying, if we just give people more information, just give them more facts, then they'll see things the way that I do. And this is called the deficit model. And we know that this doesn't work, mainly because we're not taking into account the fact that people make decisions on things other than facts. Religion and political affiliation, in particular, are sort of stumbling blocks in accepting some of this more factual information. So we know the deficit model doesn't work. So what do? We have to connect with people's values and belief systems. And a great way to frame this is thinking about this behavioral psychology model that's the elephant in the rider. So we all have an emotional, irrational side, right? We'll call that the elephant. We also all have an analytical, controlled, rational side, which is the rider. That's the part that we as scientists like to highlight, right? We're all analytical and rational. We think things through logically. But if you really think about it, the elephant is much bigger than the rider. We make a lot of emotional decisions. So when we're giving information to people, we need to direct the rider. We want to give the rider clear direction and reduce mental paralysis. So saying things like, don't just say eat right, say eat less sugar or eat more vegetables. We also need to motivate the elephant. And this is the part that a lot of times we're lacking. We need to find the emotional connection with our audience. We can do that through storytelling, lots of different ways. We can also do that through social media by humanizing ourselves, by making connections. And we want to shape the path. We want to make sure that we reduce the obstacles to people learning and understanding what we're saying. So this is making sure we're not using jargon, making sure that we're being relatable, those sorts of things. This is a great quote about the elephant and the rider. So what do you actually do? First, make sure that you're a trusted source, which you are because you're a scientist, so we've got that going for us already. Make sure that you're listening to understand, not listening to argue, not listening to be snarky or make a good point. One way that you can show that you're really listening to understand is to ask questions. Make sure that you know where the other person is coming from and what they're actually trying to say. And then respond without judgment. Affirm what you can, even if you don't agree with what they're saying. Say yes and instead of no but. And make sure that you can be relatable and that you are relating to them. So even if you disagree with what they're saying, you may be able to find shared values and experiences, relate to those, and then once you've established a connection, go back and correct the misunderstanding. Make sure that you're transparent, make sure that your intention is understood, and be kind and understandable. This is particularly for my field, acknowledge uncertainty. Focus on what we do know, but don't focus on the uncertainty because that can be kind of confusing for people. Make sure that you share your personal stories and testimonials. We often want to be seen as totally objective because we're scientists, and that's valid, but we're also part of our community. We're also human beings. We're invested in our science. We're passionate about our science, and it's important to show that too. Continue to provide people with information. Small doses of information really do add up. So, what if you're having a contentious situation? Not responding is an option. You are not required to engage with people. We recognize that you're doing this as a volunteer. We know your time is valuable and your mental and emotional health is critical. So make sure that you're protecting that. Ask yourself during these interactions, is there a benefit to responding? If you do respond, you're able to show unbiased responsiveness. You can provide a perspective. Maybe you can learn about someone else's perspective, which will help you to communicate your science better. It could be a potentially productive conversation. And important to remember is that there are going to be other people that are watching this exchange passively, sort of the bystanders of the interaction. And these people may be on the fence about whatever it is you're discussing. So think when you're having these conversations about the bystanders, focus on those fence sitters because those are the people whose minds you may be able to sway. Make sure whenever you do interact with people that you're responding in a way that will build trust for yourself and for other scientists and educators. In particular, you're a representative of 500 women scientists. Make sure that you are always having productive conversations, that you are always being kind, that you are always being factual, that you're presenting, evidence-based, science-based information. And also be human, be yourself. When do you stop responding? When the conversation is no longer productive. So for me, that's usually 2 interactions. And I can tell by then if somebody's just there to fight or to argue. There's no reason to continue with that sort of thing. So thank you again for being a member of 500 Women Scientists. And thank you very much for listening to the podcast. We'll be back with more information soon. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to any other member of the leadership team. And have a great day.